The function of policy. This is Madala. If you can just come in there.
Thank you so much, One, for having me. It is my absolute pleasure to be here. I work as a policy advisor in the Ministry of Finance, and I like that you've highlighted that this project is between ourselves at the Ministry of Finance together with the National Planning Commission. But may I also take this opportunity to highlight that this is a national initiative.
Yeah. Okay, this economic transformation program has gone through very thorough consultation and engaging. So this is a true north was determined by Cabinet, and this is what we want to look at. This is where the ETP is taking Botswana.
Botswana is an upper middle income nation with a hard truth. Unemployment sits at 25.4%, far above the 6.7% average of its peers. Foreign investment has fallen and growth has cooled, symptoms of a deeper element. Heavy reliance on diamonds, fragile export markets, and a narrow base for sustainable, diversified expansion.
This is no longer just an economic challenge. It is a national, social, existential threat that impels us to address and correct. We signal that the time for ideas alone has passed, and now it is time for delivery. This is the primary message and theme that must sink into our collective conscience from here forward.
To change course, government enlisted PEMANDU associates, the team behind Malaysia's big fast results and reforms in Rwanda, Tanzania and India. Their mandate: move Botswana quickly toward a high-income, digitally powered, export-led economy, is true north by converting plans into measurable outcomes.
From now onward, practical steps will be taken to ensure that all our policies enable, not hinder, our journey to reach that true north.
The growth engines are clear: agriculture, financial services, digitalization, manufacturing, tourism, energy and water, mining, and social pillars: education, healthcare, social protection. These sectors have contributed before, but momentum faltered with diamond downturns and an overextended public sector. Diversifying value chains and the jobs within them is now the point of the spear.
Each of our 9 priority sectors, 6 of them economic and 3 social labs, will run focused sessions to sharpen promising project concepts, to design detailed, bankable implementation roadmaps, to set clear KPIs and annual targets, and most importantly, to identify and remove the real barriers to progress, be they regulatory, institutional, or logistical.
Momentum is building. 6,000 plus ideas from citizens, business, and global investors have poured in. 200 have been shortlisted for rapid refinement into investment-ready projects, ready to attract FDI, earn foreign exchange, and create jobs at scale.
There are 3 simple anchors. These are investment, employment, and high-income target. So when we look into some of the projects that have been submitted, the anchor ought to be on these 3. Yes, potentially some of these projects might be huge, catalytic in nature on paper, but when we look into the deep dive on the numbers, some of the employment figures might not be as big as what the paper says.
The call remains open through August 17th. The invitation is simple: bring forward solutions that deepen value, speed up exports, and harden resilience. Botswana's challenge is real, but so is the path forward. With clarity, execution, and accountability, the nation can recognize its true position and steer decisively to its true north: a diversified, durable prosperity within reach.
Gentlemen and ladies, We're here. The buzzword Botswana is hakuna mali, which translates to there's no money. Government has no money. We are seeing the response of Botswana government with the Botswana Economic Transformation Program, and it really is meant to resuscitate. But you know, we have been talking this diversification for decades, actually. I don't know if anybody wants to speak to that, to just what has been the hurdle to not achieving or attaining this diversification of the economy, as has been put in policy before. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I'm happy to come in there to say it's a confluence of a number of issues. I think one, as an economy, we focused on mastering the art of how to spend the revenues that were coming out of the diamond sector. And with that, we then forgot to master the hard art of building truly competitive firms. And unfortunately, where we are, we have no other option but to crowd in private sector. That is one. I think secondly, the economic makeup of our nation is in such a way that we have the state in some of the truly competitive sectors where we should have stepped out to allow the private sector to play in those sectors. So that has been a hurdle to diversification.
Yeah.
I think the third issue, and my colleagues will come into some of these issues that I'm teasing out, has been execution. And that is why when we decided that we needed an economic transformation strategy, the model and the methodology that we chose is a methodology that is execution focused. And Aida will speak a lot more about that methodology because it's so laser focused on execution. So I keep saying that through the Botswana Economic Transformation Program, what we are trying to do is to force reform through execution. So we are doing it the other way around. The normal way of doing it has always been we need to fix the policy environment. And that always takes forever. So what we are saying now is bring a project who will force execution of this project, and in the process will also make the environment to work for everybody else.
What has been your experience, private sector? Because we are talking about a private sector-led economy. We have been talking that. I remember the first strategy of the economic diversification drive did speak to a competitive private sector. What has been your experience? Why are we not there?
I think Naledi put it very well.
Yeah.
We now need to crowd in the private sector, crowd in capital, create jobs and prosperity for our nation, as the diamond fortunes are flagging. But in the past, there were three highlights to the year: State of the Nation, the budget speech, and the declarations from the diamond guys about how much they had made from their sales. Now we don't have that, or it's not as robust as it can be. And government is forced to pivot and shift to allow the private sector in, to allow projects to take place.
But does the private sector need allowing? Shouldn't this entrepreneurs, this is creative enterprising. Would it not be more forthcoming? Should we not be expecting that?
You have rules and regulations that you have to follow. You need land, you need utilities, you need change of land use at times. Yes, an entrepreneurial mindset can get you from here very far. But when a government creates an enabling environment and moves out of the way, you can go much further. And it, as Naledi pointed out earlier, you have many state-owned enterprises dependent on public resources to do various things that they shouldn't be doing. Government could stand back and allow private sector enterprises do certain things at their own risk, using their own capital, by creating that enabling environment and focusing on what government does, which is governance, policy and regulation, and then allowing private sector to step in. So that is exactly why we're here, and I think that is what these labs that are part of the plan, economic transformation plan, are working on, is to see those areas of high gain, high job creation, export-led growth that can, catapult the economy further.
I want to bring you in here, Aida, quickly. I'll come to you, Letsatsi. I want to bring you in here as the implementing partner, as the technical partner. Is that technically what they have been speaking to, for you to speak to that? Because if we're talking about big, fast results, we're talking about what the system has been, the experience has been from private sector. This methodology, then, how is it then mitigating that?
Good question. Thank you, Oni. And I think the good news is that Botswana is not alone in this predicament. Over-reliance on a single sector that has done well. Malaysia was there before we were richly endowed with our oil and gas produce, and then we realized we are stagnant. We could not break the middle income ceiling. What do we need to do differently? And of course, the private sector was already there, but could not flourish.
Yes.
So Malaysia needed to diversify its economy, open its business, export-led, digitally enabled, so on and so forth. But the ideas are never the issue. The strategies were never the issue. It's translating those strategies into actual executable projects.
Yeah.
Outlining
because we have done well policy-wise as a country. We have been touted to.
Absolutely. And most countries as well.
Yeah.
So I could not find any strategies when I read them and say, this is not a great strategy. And most of the time, we don't even have to reinvent the wheel on strategy, on long-term vision, on near-term targets. But those strategies could not be translated into actual projects. And those projects are now outlined in terms of the implementable steps. And those steps needed assignment of accountability and ownership that is time-boxed. That's the difference. And that co-creation will allow everyone to chime in and say, hey, hang on, these are not the steps that needs to happen. This needs to happen first before this. Put it all together in one playbook and then drive the execution through reporting and accountability mechanism.
So perhaps this is where you come in then, civil society. When we're talking about the accountability, how is Botswana holding Botswana government accountable, or Botswana's economy, stepping in to make these demands? Because this is where the people are. The civil society is where the people are. How functional have you been there?
Thank you so much, Orne. And before I get to your question, let me just touch on on one it's been stated so far. Where did we drop the ball? In my view, I think she mentioned that the implementation, we have wonderful policies and paper strategies. The devil is always on the implementation of translated into a tangible results. That's one. Two, I think the country as a whole, I think we failed to stimulate the non-mineral sector through the revenues that he mentioned that we generated from the mine. Now, in terms of...
then what do you say as the people when that is happening?
That's a very good question. Now, let me get to your question where you said issues of accountability and transparency, because that's also another dimension you should look at too. We play a watchdog role.
Yes, that's what we expect.
As civil society. Where we need to look, we play oversight role for the functions and mandate of government that are delivering what they're supposed to be delivering. Okay. Now, somebody might be saying we are not doing our work, but in our view, we are doing it. We have some challenges, but I don't think we need to talk about it now.
No.
But as civil society, we are there, we play our watchdog role.
Okay. I want to come back to just this. I'm going to spend a bit of time on the backstory, because once bitten, we do all admit to how we have perfect policy. In fact, we do have nations and economies come here, benchmark, go off and implement our perfect policy. But if we just spend a bit more time on just what has not been working, just to be sure that what is being done now is not going to repeat just that trap. I don't know if anybody wants to weigh in on that one. Yes, please.
So policy development, or in the past national development plans or strategies, are typically done maybe in a relay race mindset. Right? So some ministry is accountable for a sector or segment, and then another person writes about it, and then another person assesses its feasibility, and another party goes to the investor and source for interest, and then it passes on to implementation.
Bureaucracy. Is that?
But also fixated on this particular traditional process. And you cannot fast track that because of this silo or fragmented approach. What this lab or this economic transformation program is trying to do is to flip this on its head. That means like we bring every parties that needs to be involved in one room together. For the next 4 weeks, we lock them down. And we say that these are the priority sectors. And what projects would come out from these priority sectors, let's co-create them together.
Okay.
And any issues that have been faced before, let's bring them out, bring the person who can resolve those issues to outline what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And document it. And this can be the playbook, not just for priority projects, but for the other projects to come in years.
One would have thought when we tried to streamline the planning process, which is that what everything boils down to, that when we took all the planning functions from national strategy, and from the Ministry of Finance and housed it in one planning commission, one would have thought maybe that's what we're trying to eliminate or trying to mitigate. Where was that perhaps not meeting quite the mark? We're still getting fragmentation, as she said, fragmentation of government processes, even though we've centralized the planning function. I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Yes, no, I'm happy to come in there, and it's really beyond just the Ministry of Finance and National Planning. And I want to give you an example. You know, the leadership spent a bit of time traveling and meeting both locally and internationally. And there's a constant feedback that the international investors and the local investors has been giving them. I've come to your country, I have 2 billion worth of investment. I'm trying to put that investment into your country. I have not been able to do that because I get in, I go to BITC, I go to Tsara, I'm taken to the line ministry, I'm taken to a department. I am literally moved from pillar to post until I come again next time. For the third time, the investor is tired.
Yeah.
They do not have that level of patience. So the fragmentation is really across the entire government machinery.
Yeah.
This is just an example, and is one of the many examples of that fragmentation.
And I think we have fairly laid the backstory. So then we're going to come in this next session to where it is that we are, this transformation program, and engage it thoroughly. All right, so that's the backstory. This is where we are. We have actually been an economy that was performing with growth rate at around 8%, somewhere in the 1990s. There's a point where per capita income was sitting at 6,000. And how did we get here? Well, that is a story to be debated. But because we are here, what is the answer? Is the Botswana Economic Transformation Program. And we're going to unpack that when we come back. Hello there, this is the Economic Compass. Now, first of all, the Economic Compass took a bit of a backstory, looking at where Botswana is when we're talking economics. And right now, we have our experts, or our guests here, come to a round table to now unpack this and engage this. If you have not been with us, if you're only just joining us, we do have participation from BOCONGO. We do have participation from Business Botswana, from the technical partners in implementing this transformation, PEMANDU, and of course from the policy department of the Ministry of Finance. And we're going to bring it to the round table. Okay, so bringing it to the round table, I think what I'm picking up is that from in the past 6 decades, historically, these macroeconomic indicators perhaps were denying us the opportunity to see the real structural shortcomings of the performance of our economy. I want to speak to that. You have experience as a business. You do mention that as much as, yes, the entrepreneurial spirit cannot on its own, without that environment, which is enabled by government, perform to lead the economy as optimally as we should.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. So you talk of structural shortcomings. I could tell you 100 stories, but we don't have time.
Yeah, please,
but
let's take one.
But let me just give you one right now.
Yeah.
We have a tenant in Gaborone West who wants to operate a factory. Yeah. They have bought equipment. They have bought a Superlink truck. Their investment is more than 5 million. Right now, they're waiting for the city council to come and give them a permit and inspect their facility. And they've been waiting for more than a month and a half.
Well, but what is the turnaround time that the city council promises in paper?
I would not know, but
Yeah.
if someone is bringing in money and creating jobs, you'd expect that the government is going to rush there to permit that activity to happen because it's going to create jobs, it's going to create tax and revenue for the country, right? So those are some of the things. I'll give you another example. Environmental permits.
The environmental impact assessment.
Change of land use and so on and so forth. The bureaucracy is quite slow to permitting business to do what it does. So hopefully one of the outcomes of the process we're going through now is seeing where the shortfalls are, where the bottlenecks are, and opening up those bottlenecks for the high priority projects that government identifies. But then also reviewing the processes and the system that we have of approvals, of regulations for everybody's benefit, such that business can thrive and can move at the speed of light.
Okay, so then to achieve this resuscitation of Botswana's economy, there are the priority sectors that have been identified. I want to ask the people, I'll call civil society the people. I want to call the people if this is, have you had at least an opportunity to appreciate the 9 sectors? And is this coming from or informed by the people's experience? How much engagement have you had?
That's a very good question. If how were the priorities identified? I will leave it to the policy expert and the technical implementing partner to tell us how did they come with that. For me, from society perspective, we've got 2 issues. The first one, when we spoke about we need to change the way we've been doing things. And one of our, which has not sit well with us, is the amount of time frame that has been taken between the time it's been conceptualized up to time it needs to be finished.
The transformation program.
The transformation program.
Okay.
Okay. Having said that, if our wish would be the current administration, if you want to leave a long legacy, they need to start things from the bottom up.
Okay.
And they need to change the way things been done. We understand that the fiscal space of the country is constrained. The country wants to expand and also diversify the economy. But the period being taken, is it the foundation? Is it really going to sustain? Well, or it's going to crash?
Could I come in there?
Or is it going to crash?
We were on National Development Plan 12. We've been doing things the slow and methodical way for those 12 plans over 50 plus years. And it's gotten us here. So we need to change the velocity and the agency with which we act. Our coffers are empty. And if we do it the traditional way of touring the country, checking everyone's pulse.
Government tell us what to do.
We will run out. We will run out of water. We will run out of electricity.
But you know, as much as Mr. Tsara is talking about proactiveness, but you know, but how much of this intention was there, or at least effort?
Yes. No, I am so glad that I did not have to be the first one to say that. But I can come in here and say, you know, the BETP is not a standalone initiative. It is been layered on top of a whole lot of work that has already been done. And from an NPC, National Planning Commission perspective, the ground has been covered in terms of going out there and knowing the pulse of the people. NPC has done an extensive work. So we're building on that and saying, okay, with all of this work that has been done, what is missing? The transformation aspect. And that is why, and I will take the feedback in terms of the consultation not having as wide. I admit.
But perhaps it's in our method, this going around as you put it, in our method, because how much of that have you felt?
It's not going around on, it's a partnership. Is the issue of partnership. It adds synergy, cannot be overemphasized. Now the question would be, what type of partnership do we have? Is it a kind of a horse and a rider kind of partnership?
Should civil society be invited to the table, or just bring the chair to the table?
Exactly.
That's my question.
If you are not in a table, where are you? It means you're on the menu. If you're not on the table,
I want to ask,
so you have to sit down as equal partners, co-create this. We talked about co-creation, where the which is nowadays is the buzz. And active, meaningfully contribute something which will ultimately have an ownership of it. Our comparative advantage as civil society is that you go to each and every corner of the country.
Yeah. Have you had an opportunity as the technical partner to appreciate these dynamics, these peculiarities? Because yes, the policy is talking about consultation is done. And the ground is saying, I have not felt it. So, yeah.
I'll respond in two parts. And I think these are very, very powerful realization and how we can, put more that we're doing on steroids and start some of the things that we haven't started. But the first part, let me paint the picture on how this methodology takes place. Yes. The first and foremost important thing is buy-in at the leadership level. Otherwise, the transformation, you don't even have to do it. It will definitely fail. So the buy-in from the top leaders of the country will need to be aligned that this is what we want to do. We're committed to do this, and the prioritization is absolutely important, because if we don't prioritize, then we do everything, then it doesn't generate the results that we want in a short frame of time. And we are limited by our resources anyway, in terms of budget, in terms of efforts and time. So that was done with the president and the vice president and the cabinet ministers already to identify what would really move the needle from an economic sector and from the social sector. Yeah. And it was a tough conversation, because we have to say no to certain things and make sure we focus on the things that we say yes. Yeah. And that was what given birth to what we then bring into the labs. And we issued a call for ideas. We say that submit your boldest projects that will catalyze the socio-economic reform of the country.
So, something got you ticked. Something got him ticked.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Just to add to what Ms. Azmi has said, when we first met with PEMANDU and the Ministry of Finance, actually before that it was Business Botswana, the creative and arts sector was one of the economic focus areas of the economic transformation program. Yeah. It then got dropped, right? But that does not mean that as creative artists and media, we are not submitting our ideas. Right. It does not mean that we are not in the labs. We are. I know of 2 colleagues who are there. It does not mean that we have not been part of the process. We do not have time. And we have people we have elected to lead us as a country. Yeah. And they're making decisions on our behalf. But now, for the first time, in all this planning that we have done over 50 years, they are saying, come in and send us your ideas. It's still open until Sunday. Right. 2, there are possibly, from the pictures I have seen, 100 people gathered in labs, solving for the economy, solving for the social sector, solving for the public sector. So I would have loved to be there but was not invited. Right. But there is a process that is being followed, and we do not have time. So the co-creation is happening, and the civil society needs to submit its ideas to the process. It needs to submit its projects to the process.
Because I mean, this is about his concern.
Okay. I entirely agree with you. Now, the modalities of submission of ideas is online. Right. Through online platform. Right. What is our internet penetration? What is the level of awareness of citizens, ordinary citizens, about the initiative which is in here? We don't have people from Matudugwani, where I come from, or from the rural areas, who can able to submit the ideas. Yes. There might be brilliant ideas, social enterprises ideas.
Let me chip in. That needs to be submitted. Let me chip in there. Please answer to that, because I know there is something in place to cater for that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So what we did was to, even the first ministry that we consulted was the Ministry of Local Government, because we understand that they are the face of government at the local level.
So what actually happens at call for ideas?
So when we
address his concern,
so when we did the call for ideas, we also took the local leadership through an exercise to say, we have this call for ideas, it is online, but we are also saying to Botswana, if you do not have internet, walk over to your council, walk over to Malaudi, let them help you in order to submit your ideas. And we have been receiving some manual submissions from the councils, from Balaudi's offices.
Let me just ask you the first, Aida, what does this look like? So this resuscitation, re-energizing, 12 weeks, because the transformation program is 12 weeks, we're smack in the middle, I think.
Yeah.
If you could just, as briefly as you possibly can, paint the picture. What is this animal?
we take off from this call for ideas. So we have the prioritization and good call. That's some things that we have to say no to doesn't mean that you cannot be part of this process. I mean, it's ever fluid, and we need the voices and the reasons.
We need the big, fast solutions.
Correct. So then we call for ideas and we canvass those ideas. And as of today, there were over 5,000 ideas that were submitted. And the team is applying a rigorous filter to make sure the boldest and the most catalytic projects get brought into the lab for the problem solving and implementation.
What happens at the lab?
So when these projects come into the lab, we then look at, first before they come into the lab, there's a strict filtering criteria. So, because the ideas are still raw. You still need to polish and cut it for them to shine like diamonds in the market. Once that process is done, the filtration is done.
Filtration is filtering what?
So the filtration from 5,000, and we can't do 5,000
I mean, what are
what's
the criteria?
We have to look at the ambition of the country. We say we want to diversify, and we want to become a high-income Botswana in 2036. We are now at $7,000 GNI per capita. In order to become high-income nation, we need to double the economy to become 15,000 GNI per capita by 2036. So what do we do in the shortest time and pick these 5,000 ideas that can generate the catalytic impact to move the needle towards that direction? So it's economic impact, and then job creation, readiness, export-driven, and readiness. Do you need financing? Or is this still an incubatory step? Or money is ready, shovel-ready, as you said,
Self-funding.
that you need permits or licensing to be processed. So these are the filtration criteria to ensure that we pick the ones that can have the speed of impact and the scalability as well. We would land in maybe the range of hundreds by the time we move them to the lab. The process is still ongoing. As of now, we're still receiving ideas. But those that have been sieved through are now in the labs, and we bring people from all the different elements, the public sector, the government, the civil society, they play a role, the private owners and the financiers sit in one room and unpack this project. By the time they finish the lab, these projects are no longer a concept. These projects are ready, bankable and implementable. But what happens next is institutionalizing the delivery mechanism so that everyone has a new way of working to make sure this happens.
Because you know, earlier when we were talking out off air, you mentioned how it almost feels like we are red carpeting this intervention. But what about the rest of our existence? Do you know, how is this transformation program then going to impact the rest of our existence? Yes, these ones will red carpet them, get them going. You wanted to chip in something there?
I think the priority lane is necessary because we don't have time. We have 39% youth unemployment. If we're not careful, the poor will eat the rich. So we really need to do things at high speed, and sometimes there will be casualties or people will get left behind. But hopefully, what we will learn from the priority lane that will be created for these projects is, why can't we do that for everything? Why can permits not come out in a day? Why can applications not be online? Why, when you get a consent from a land board, can it not be emailed instead of posted and take 45 days to arrive? So hopefully the process will unlock government and open up the jaws of the economy, such that government, the laws, the regulations, the process of governance that goes around doing business makes business easier to do for everybody, not just for the projects that will be prioritized.
We're going to take a bit of a breather and then come back here. What we were looking at is just this resuscitation or transitional time that Botswana is at. Thank you for staying with us. This is the Economic Campus, and thank you for experiencing the inaugural episode of the Economic Campus. So what we have looked at is just exactly what Botswana is paint the picture of what Botswana is when we're talking economics, and paint the picture of what a solution is when we're talking about the transformation program. So we're going to take it into perspective and look at perhaps our expectations of what results this will bring about. Do remember that we have here to discuss this, first of all, civil society represented by BOCONGO. We have a Business Botswana here representing private sector. We also have the technical partner, which is PEMANDU, and then we also have the spearheaders of this transitional time, which is a Ministry of Finance, which is working in partnership with the National Planning Commission. Let me come back here. So do we, your expectations, I want to start from civil society to business, your expectations and perhaps what your interests would be at this time. Are they being met as far as you're seeing or hearing this being unpacked?
Okay, thank you. Before I get to your question, let me clarify the issue about the figure. You mentioned at the moment there are 5,000 ideas submitted.
That's what you're saying?
We are left with 5 days to the closing date. And out of a population of almost 2.5 million, and that's going to still be filtered, to borrow your word. So that means we might end up with half of that or less than that. A lot less, yeah. A lot less. Okay. And in my view, that will not be a true representation of the country.
Of the ideas
or
from
of
Botswana.
the ideas from, yes. In my view, that won't be that. And then we have this on this issue of the economic classification of the country being an upper middle income country. They want to catapult it to, by 2036 to be a developed country. That is done at the expense of the citizens.
Okay,
from where we look at it from civil society perspective, it's done at the expense of ordinary citizens because these are micro indicators. It does not translate at micro level in terms of improvement of livelihood at household level.
So then, what do you say, Letsatsi? Therefore, ideally, this approach or this transition should be approaching the people. In what manner?
The people has to be, I know HE said the people are going to be at the center of this. So the people has to be at the core of this. Inclusivity.
Okay.
Yes, there has to be inclusivity into this. So now,
do feel free to respond to this because this is challenger to the program. This is, I think, digging out for more from the program. Maybe there is answers in place to respond to this concern. I want to believe also perhaps there is a question of, I don't know how many of us as citizens have engaged to understand what the transformation program is. Where do we even find the document? We'll come to that. But Wela, please, do continue on your point.
In terms of this economic classification that you are advancing, it's well and good for the country, but that is at micro level. Let's not leave the micro level at the household, the impact. You look at the level of poverty in the country. You look at this is one of the highest unequal country in the world. You look at the HIV/AIDS and other social ills, gender-based violence, for example.
Absolutely.
It's because people are at the periphery of all the planning and everything. So my expectation is inclusivity.
So is this program not answering exactly that?
Yes, I am happy to come in here to say, you know, Letsatsi mentioned that in a population of 2.5 million people, having submissions of 5,000 it shows lack of representation, and I want to differ with that. You know, when you sit with PEMANDU, and they will tell you that this country has actually had one of the highest response rates for this call for action that they have done. It's something that they have done over and over in other countries. They've done it in Tanzania, they've done it in Rwanda. They will tell you that one of the...
interject, but this 5,000 is open to the world,
It's open to the world.
It's not just us alone as citizens of the country, no?
Yes, absolutely, because we are global citizens after all. But I also wanted to say that we could not, and I'm not being defensive, you know, we take feedback.
You're being responsive.
But I wanted to say that we could not boil the ocean.
Right.
We needed to start somewhere because the country, the economy is in dire need of a response.
Yes.
So this is a first start. You know, we needed to start somewhere to make sure that the transformative projects, even if it's just 100 truly transformative projects that can move the needle. Right. And I also want to differ to say, if we are chasing becoming high-income economy, it also means that we are leaving the people behind. The planning for Botswana is bottom up. It has always been like that, and that is not about to change. That is why I was saying we are layering the Botswana Economic Transformation Program on top of a whole lot of groundwork that has already been done by the national.
A quick question comes to mind, because this is what has been in the lips of citizens. So economic transformation plan, it replaces a national development plan, you know, and your simple answer is?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
All right.
Yes.
I want you to speak
if anything, it's strengthening the rigor of the national development plan.
Thank you.
Yes, and
I want
Aida
you to speak to that, because his concern is that all this is leaving behind the person. Inclusivity, how this economic resuscitation is taking in or taking with it the Botswana.
So, in fact, and I appreciate that push, because it allows us to then frame it in this way. In fact, it's the other way around. It's not leaving the people, it's because of the people. Okay. And when you look at the way the economy is driven right now, of course, one is diamond, but also the biggest employer in the country is public service. Yeah. And in order to uplift the economy, we need more jobs, youth unemployment rate to be reduced, and so on and so forth. Who else can play in this space successfully is the private sector. So we need to make the private sector space vibrant so that economy can be revived. The government is not in the business of doing business. Mm-hmm. So therefore, we need the people who are good at doing business to catalyze the economy and then generate the budget for us to then drive the social change. Having said that, social sectors are also being prioritized, because we know there are dire and fast need for better education, better healthcare, and better social protection. So we take an element of that, although it's harder to get private sector investments into these areas, but we say that we apply the same rigor and problem solving to make sure healthcare is universally addressed. Okay. Education, we equip our graduates for the future needs of the industries.
And speak up on the labs.
Yeah, and the social protection part. Yeah. But to respond to the numbers, and I want to say that it's very well received. Because in Malaysia, for example, when we ran this 15 years ago, we are a population of 30 million. And we landed on 131 projects. So it's not so much about the numbers, but on the quality of the submission. And when we look at the 5,000, there are big and bold ambitions, but there are also a lot that could not be put into this process right now because it's still at a nascent stage. Okay. Yeah.
All right. So you ended at 130 projects, but the response, how big was the response? Because I think his other concern is processing this number of responses to filter down to the ones that we're going to arrive at. Yeah.
So we did it in stages back then in Malaysia. So in terms of the economic priorities, there were 12 areas. So of course it's bigger, but across the 12 economic sectors, we filtered down only 131 economic projects, not social yet. But just to give you the flavor of, it's not really about taking thousands of projects, because the government will also need to put in the capital to ensure the accessibility, infrastructure, and so on and so forth. Yeah. But one thing I want to come back is on how important citizen and civil society comes into this process, is at when we share what this is. You asked the question, and where can we find this? We're not there yet. We are on step 2 in the process. In the middle of the lab, what we usually do is we break the momentum and we say, take a pause. You've done all this work in this closed door room by invitation only. Let's open it up and call the right people to walk through the process and give feedback then. Then we conclude the lab. What happens after is the citizen outreach then when we share this big transformation program. So the communication process would come in to relay the right messages to investors, to citizens, to funding providers.
Okay, I want you to come in there. Government is not in the business of doing business, and the government is admitting to it finally, and giving the experts in the entrepreneurs now their rightful position.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And the other thing, as you know, public resources are simply not there to do some of the things that we have been doing in the past and doing somewhat inefficiently. I was seeing an article by an economist the other day where our unemployment has tracked our infrastructure spend. So as we spend more and more on infrastructure, we have created less and less jobs, right? So absolutely, when the private sector comes in, it is efficient, it puts its money and reputations on the line, which is different from when government comes in and sometimes a project fails, money gets lost, there's no accountability, life goes on, a person gets paid at the end of the month. When I lose money, I close shop. When I lose
And you call
money,
somebody to account.
I can't pay for my kids to go to school. I call somebody to account. So that transition of our economy and how we operate to say, let us let people at the grassroots and let us let people risk their own money, which is how capitalism works, is going to transform this country.
How hungry are you?
Absolutely.
Botswana business, because I mean we have operated at small, medium forever and ever, and of course this is looking like an opportunity to even be playing at big business. You know,
money is a great motivator. We are very hungry, and also, like I said, it pains me. I've enjoyed great success in business, but I represent people in my sector some of whom are struggling, and our business is not doing 100% right now in this environment. And at the end of the day, you want your Botswana, you want everybody to get the same opportunities that you have had, and you want the country to transform, as the president said, be unrecognizable in 3 years, right? So you asked earlier about what are we expecting to see from this by way of results.
Yes.
I'm not worried about hundreds of projects. Give us 10 catalytic projects that can employ people, export, and put Botswana on the world map and leverage us being in SADC and being land linked and being we should be at the center of the Southern African economy, if not the African economy. And we've attempted it in the past with the International Financial Services Center and other things. But this time we really don't have time, and this is a last chance saloon for us. So if we get 10 catalytic projects that can employ at least 5,000 to 10,000 people each, I'll be happy.
Okay. I want to come to that because when we left for break, we were looking at just issues of accountability, because monitoring of our projects and evaluation of our projects has been lagging behind. But after we monitor and then we evaluate and then we see what the problem is, then accountability. I don't know if policy is ready to respond to that, because how easy is it to get efficiency out of our government machinery? Or how is policy going to try and ensure that?
Yes. Yeah. You know, I want to go back to what Aida said earlier, to say the tone for transformation has been set from the top.
Okay.
And the momentum that we are seeing even in the labs at the moment is very much reflective of that. You could be calling a regulator, a licensed person, a person at the land board, and saying there is a project here that has been problem solved, that needs you to come and give your side of the story and take a decision. That is already happening. And there's absolutely no reason why that momentum should stop. That is the momentum that is going to be kept until execution. Okay. And, you know, we are very committed to this process. I keep saying, because the same worry came out from the private sector in the room, from the social sector in the room, from the cooperatives, or from a whole lot of people that we have consulted, to say, but government, how committed are you to this process? Yes. I think for me, you know, the opportunity cost of spending a whole month in the labs should send a very strong message that government...
Where there is malpractice or resistance, will heads roll. We hardly ever see government go in there. Type thing. I think this is where...
And corruption as well.
And corruption. Where we see corruption, malpractice, inertia.
Yeah, I want to speak to the issue of corruption. Yeah. Because this methodology is very transparent. It's such a transparent methodology. It's very clear how the assessments are being made, what goes into the labs. It's also very, it's not like you're going to spend your month going through, getting a project to be ready, and then tomorrow someone is going to pick it from you. It remains your project.
Okay, I'm going to have to ask for, so where to from this 12 weeks, because we are running out of time in this discussion. Yeah.
So we've just started the lab on Monday. So it will run over the next 4 weeks. Once the lab is finished, we will issue this playbook of implementable steps for each of this project. We will articulate what investment quantum is expected from this project, how many jobs are expected to be created from this, and who are the portfolio ministry accountable to the delivery of all of this. So that will be published and shared. The next phase is on the implementation, meaning institutionalize this delivery mechanism, not just at the central level, but at the ministerial level and at the private sector level, to make sure that the reports can be published and tracked. And in 3 years' time, somebody has to stand in front of the nation and say, where we're at, this is how much we should. And I'm sure if it's being done in this manner, it will be, you shoot for the moon and you land amongst the stars.
Absolutely. Let me thank all of you. We have just 30 seconds for each one of you to wrap up your take.
Okay, thank you so much, One. Basically, I wanted to find out how readiness our institutions are in terms of uptake.
Quickly, can you?
She has already answered to it, so I'm okay with it. But as a society, we have positioned ourselves to be working to complement what the government is doing in its effort.
Absolutely. Thank you. Business?
From our side, we are so happy that the private sector has finally been platformed. In the past, government thought it created jobs, government thought it set up businesses.
Yeah.
Now government is taking a step back and allowing what should happen to happen, and we hope it will catalyze the growth of our economy and the ease of doing business generally, not just for the projects coming from the labs, but for everyone in this country.
Yeah. All right. Aida?
Reality is it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a tough couple of months, if not years. But if everyone is focused on a common goal and delivery, we can take Botswana from potential to performance.
Yeah.
I think in my closing remarks, I also just want to respond to what my fellow panelist has said about, not just creating a red carpet for these few selected projects. In the lab, we are not only going to be zooming into the specific projects. If it's the agric lab, it's also solutioning for the reforms that are needed to enable the entire sector. So at the end of the day, we realize the importance of making the environment work for everybody.
It's a
so
valid
it
point.
is part
it's
of
a very powerful point that you mentioned there, because yes, I think all of us are thinking this is about the projects that are going to come out. If you perhaps want to highlight that, just underscore that.
Yes, it is about the projects that are going to come out, but it's also about, like I said earlier, that we could not boil the ocean.
Yeah.
We had to start somewhere. So these projects that are going to come up need to be execution ready and are going to be execution ready, but also the entire reform package of each and every sector has to also, what happens in the lab is that by the end of the labs, it's going to be clear what needs to change in the agri sector. It's going to be clear what needs to change in the manufacturing sector, and so on and so on, and that is going to happen. Earlier on, I said a statement that we are forcing reform through execution instead of having to do it the other way around.
Thank you all of you for coming through, and thank you for opening up this discussion. All right. Well, we're forcing a reform through execution is exactly how we put it here. This is where we are. There are 9 priority areas that this resuscitation or transformation project is going to be focusing on. So here on the Economic Campus, we'll actually go through all of them, go through each sector, get the sector to participate, while along we have the implementer and the technical partner in every one of these discussions. So this is how we start the Economic Campus. Rakai, Relitso la Botswana.
Magwele asingalonganiwe se malopa makulu, bugwele kwe swikiri, bugwele kwe moyo, mapapu, kankiri, kene cancer, ne mamwe, ndiwano vanga njifunjinji mu